Okay, blah blah blah. Doop 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 doop. Our event is starting. Okay, it says we are live, but I don't know if we are live. But I'll just assume we're live. Thank you everyone for joining us today here on OreAni. So welcome everyone to the end of 2019 summer season.
Woohoo!
Yay! I know last video was really terrible with the audio. My apologies. We were trying something new for the first time and I messed up. Hopefully this time we got everything hashed out and you can hear us all properly. So during this session, I don't mind if you go more into detail since we kind of missed the audio for the start of the season on the titles you have. But other than that, let's go ahead and welcome everyone here. We got Sean.
Hey.
Jessica.
Hi.
The big V.
Thank you for having me.
And we have Nick.
Pending a lighting fix.
Niku. And of course myself, which you guys probably don't recognize me. So hardly ever see my face.
Not without the mask now.
Yeah. So, starting off for this season, we're gonna just jump right into this, that fate lore, the fate life. Lord Elmelios II, case files.
Sure.
Close enough.
Melio? No,
Malloy.
Malloy. If I watched it, I probably could have gotten it.
Would have helped.
Well, it's not the first title I've messed up. So,
Nor will it be the last.
according to my documentation here, Nick's the only one that's not.
What?
No, I'm sorry, that's Sean.
No, I'm filling out the other sheet. Crap.
So Sean is the only one that's
I've
seen
seen it too. No.
Okay, Nick and Sean.
Wait, what's going on with this other sheet? There's nothing there. Where are you looking?
What are you looking at? Just because you're late, you're messing everything up.
No, like,
Here.
I don't even see where Sean is. Oh.
I'm going to delete this sheet that says don't touch. Because I don't think we're using it, right?
Yeah, I don't even know where that came from.
Well, anyway, sorry about that.
Alright, so, any one of you want to take that? Because I only saw the first 3 episodes, I believe.
So do you want me to introduce it, or should we just go straight to the verdict?
Go to the verdict and maybe tell you us a little bit why you started it.
So this thing, it's a Fate spinoff. I hate to invoke Scooby-Doo, but I am going to invoke it because it has kind of the formula, you know. So each of these mystery arcs, they're locked in a place. Someone gets murdered. They have to solve the mystery. It's always some like maniacal mage who wants to ascend to godhood or attain immortality or like, you know, attain some great power otherwise. And he's sort of unmasked and they have to fight him. So it's kind of formulaic in that way. But, you know, that said, it's like pretty amusing. So structurally, it's a pretty interesting thing because it starts with single episode arcs, then it does a double, and then it ends with a 6-parter called the Rail Zeppelin arc, where they get on this train and they do this like Murder on the Orient Express type thing, where someone gets murdered and then they do some investigation, they come to a conclusion, but no, wait, he's not the real murderer. I know who the real killer is, you know, so on and so forth. So the first time I watched that 6-parter at the end, like I lost track of what was happening. So just like yesterday, I actually rewatched the entire 6-part arc, you know, with the benefit of hindsight to see if any of it makes sense. and it does. It does make sense, somewhat. I guess my criticism of that arc, and this also applies to pretty much all the other arcs, is that this show does not lay out its mysteries very well. Like they're almost impossible to think about and preempt the ending of, outside of just the genre conventions. And for example, the Rail Zeppelin arc, at the very end, they introduce a ton of magical concepts, just a ton of supernatural concepts that they describe very briefly, and you kind of have to take the show's word for it. Where I think if you wanted to make something where the viewers can sort of where the viewers can actually follow along and sort of think about the mystery and all the factors and sort of preempt some of the revelations and stuff, and make some guesses as to like who's the real killer and so on and so forth, they would have to lay out more of those concepts at the beginning to sort of create this bed of logic where the mystery can reside. But they don't do that in this show. Instead, they sort of like parade out these revelations at the end, with these like brief descriptions of magecraft. And like I said, the descriptions are so vague that you kind of have to take the show's word for it. It's like, okay, you're saying that's how it works, then I guess that's how it works. And so it's not a very effective mystery anime. I guess I don't have a lot of experience with the genre, so the only other thing that comes to mind is Hyoka, and like that is very diligent about laying out all these concepts and making sure you understand like all the ramifications of like when they introduce a new factor and how that puts a spin on like the mystery model that you had before. Where this show is like pretty arbitrary, and it's more about enjoying the techno babble of it, and I guess as I watched it, I was entertained. But it's the sort of like, this makes sense to somebody out there. Like, this doesn't make sense to me, but it makes sense to somebody, and that's sort of its own sort of entertainment.
So yeah, I almost have to say that somebody would have to be deeply invested in the Fate first, beyond just, say, watching the anime as I have. Because, like, most of the Fate properties tend to deal with the Grail War, with I think the two exceptions are kind of like that Iliasville spin-off thing, and that one video game one, I forgot what it was called, but that really recent one.
Like
that wasn't quite
Extra.
Yeah. So like none of them really helped explain the magic at all, and it was kind of interesting though, because near the end we do kind of have that. We don't have a continuation of the Grail War, but we had almost like an inventum to a concept of it with the revealed class of I'm just going to spoil it and say Faker. I thought that was an interesting way to kind of blend into that story and deal with the Grail Wars, with Waver's like kind of past obsession with it and who he is now as a person, was kind of more my vested interest in the show, and the mysteries that I had no chance to solve because I had no clue how the magic works didn't really, that's not what I was in for. So
yeah, the characters are nice, or I don't know. I like the characters. I kind of like the drama, and I like that Waver is trying to like he's getting closer to the mystery of the Grail War and the Holy Grail and all that. So it's nice on those fronts, but yeah, like the mechanics that drive the mysteries, it's like you have to dig deep into the Fate Stay Night technical manual or something. I don't know if such a thing exists. But it's like if they made a Star Trek mystery show, but there was just so much technobabble that's like so obscure that you won't be able to
brand new
it.
alien races that you had no prior knowledge of.
Yeah, and they introduced like a new alien race in the last 5 minutes, and then like only the nerdiest of the most hardcore of Star Trek fans who have like read all the technical manuals or something would know what the hell is happening. So that's how I felt like watching Fate, watching Lord El Molloy Nisei no Jikenbo Rail Zeppelin Grace Notes.
So I had a
Yeah.
question about your whole mystery thing. Would you kind of compare it to like some of the Detective Conan stuff?
I haven't seen any Detective Conan, so I actually don't know. But I would guess that it's like that.
I mean, kind of, because there are accusations made on who could have committed the murder, and alibis that need debunking and stuff. So I mean, but I would not say that if you like murder mystery, you'll really kind of like this. I think it's more of a Fate property, more so than just start watching it for murder mystery goodness.
I heard that like Detective Conan is like pretty bullshitty, in terms of it. So if you want to see a mystery show where they give you a set of concepts and give you a puzzle and you're meant to sort of chew over that puzzle for a while, this is not that kind of mystery show.
Okay. So,
It's more like a thriller, like thing, suspense thriller kind of thing, and you sort of depend on the main character Waver to make sense of everything, and if it makes sense to him, then it's good enough. It doesn't have to make sense to you. As long as it makes sense to him, then the drama works.
Sounds like a captive audience in the worst possible way.
so does the quality hold out throughout the whole season?
Yeah, it's like fairly consistent. Isn't it? I wouldn't expect Fate Zero from this thing, but Troika is the studio. They're a spin-off of UFO Table. Like the people that worked on Fate Zero kind of made their own studio, and now they made this. They also did Recreators and All Know Zero, and then maybe another thing that I'm forgetting, but they have some lineage to old Fate, so the quality holds up. It's like perfectly acceptable. It's never exceptional, but I do like all the ornately textured backgrounds and stuff. So the show is at least visually interesting. Like it has its own sort of look and feel.
All right.
I will say at the very least that for anyone who did watch Fate Zero and kind of knows the story of Waver, the last episode does a really cool, meeting of the mentor moment. And, like, I'd almost say, like, just watch that moment. Like, if you're not all that interested in watching, like, who he became as a person, just skip by all that and just kind of watch that little coda at the end of the whole point of the show. Because that was, like, watching that moment is worth it in and of itself, and, like, not for the whole series.
All right. Well, that was Fate Stay Mysteries. Let's go ahead and go on to our next title, which we have is going to be Nights or Try Nights.
Let's see. Am I the only one that saw this? Yes. Okay. This one is an absolute dumpster fire, and as a moth who flits to the flames for dumpster fires, I just had to keep watching it until I couldn't anymore. The animation is probably the worst I have ever seen in recent memory. Episode 1 was okay. Episode 2, holy mackerel, no. They use... So it's about rugby, right? Which is an action sport. You cannot fake your way through animation in a sports title. It's just impossible. And these guys were using CG models for the characters in a match. And they look like something from the PS1 era. I kid you not. You have to watch episode 2, because that's when everything just goes to shit. The characters are so off model, it is hard to tell who is who from one scene to the next. We got crossed eyes, drug babies, the works. So I would recommend watching episode 2 as a curiosity of how wrong things can get. As the story, it was kind of interesting, but I just could not watch it past episode 4 because the animation was just so terrible. It will make your eyeballs bleed. It's that bad.
So, a few questions.
Okay.
Is this still your high school sports type of show, or is this outside of high school?
This is high school, yes. The high school team. What is nice about the story is that they don't have to get enough members for the rugby club to survive. The rugby club is very much alive and well, so that was nice. And the main character used to play rugby and has to be convinced to play it again. So the other nice thing is that there's not a whole lot of, this is the rugby ball. This is what the rugby field looks like. This is all the rugby E's that you have to, and all of the jargon. They don't make a primer on it. They're assuming that you have a casual knowledge of rugby, which I don't, but it was still fun to watch.
The only influence of rugby I have is from Full Metal Fumufu, or whatever that was. Panic Fumufu?
Oh, okay, yeah.
That side episode with the rugby team. So, what was this?
I think I've lost my taste for dumpster fires now that you mention it. So I have seen, 4, maybe 5 episodes of Copcraft. I think by episode 3, it basically turned into Wizard Barristers. It was
3
unwatchable.
got really bad, yeah. 3 was bad, but this is worse. This is way worse.
Worse than Copcraft.
If you don't mind wasting 20 minutes of your life for some schadenfreude, I do recommend you check out those horrible 3D models that they used for the characters, at the very least. I think that's in the first 5 minutes of the episode, so.
Or, skip around it. Maybe not the whole 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, you let me know what you think.
Okay.
I'm tempted to compare that with the certain isekai episode that got panned for that.
Oh.
I wonder how
Ari
bad it is
Furita
compared
was pretty bad too.
So, yeah, since we're talking about trash, let's just go straight to that next title here. Ari Furita, I think is what the shorthand, but it's another one of those titles that, as long as there's no monsters on screen, it looks okay. But when they start fighting monsters, it's just so terrible. They just go. The CG is so off compared to everything else that it's.
I only saw the first episode. Does the quality improve at all? Because I thought that the cinematography was really bad too.
It does not really. Like when they get to the dragon is so bad.
Like the really big monsters are really bad blended CG, but when it's not like a really big monster, it's not so noticeable. But yeah, like the behemoth class, anything the size of like a big boss out of like an RPG game is just done with CG, and the art styles clash, but I don't know if like the effect can be kind of looked past because they're fighting a big monster, so maybe it makes sense that the textures of the skin of the monster isn't like 2D animation, but that's really grasping at hairs, so.
I think after a while you kind of get numb to the pain. That's how I feel about it.
I mean, I personally never minded it, but that's just me.
No, it bugged me a little bit.
Yeah, I can see it having that effect, but for me, I could look past it.
It was kind of like when I was trying to get into, what was that called? Handshakers and their fighting abilities.
Hey, that's a guilty pleasure of mine, okay?
I know, but this is, it makes me think of that. You know how it's so off-putting when you see the CG versus how the animation is?
Well, I think it was intentional there. Like, their use of, like, second layer color is, like, somewhat known to that studio as unique. Like, because it had the same aesthetic as K, if you remember the season 1 and 2 of K.
Yeah, but I don't know. Just like when they used those chains and then that gear sword, I don't know. Just to me, it was just terrible. And that's how the monsters are in this show to me. It's just it doesn't go well. I kind of wish I would have preferred like low quality hand drawn monsters that kind of matched the whole scene. But no, they tried to make these things seem really epic, but it didn't match with the animation at all. And it just, I don't know. I love the books. I love the books so much that I'm still watching it just to get to a certain point that I love in the story, which I think is the next episode. And then after that, I may call it quits and just stick with whatever the book's ending is.
So I know we haven't talked about it yet, but it'll be, as Caroline Tuesday put it, to be continued in your mind.
Yes, to be continued in my mind, like Clanad and a few other stories that I never finished because I don't know if I could accept the ending.
That's it. This is gonna be buried under the pile.
But yeah, I mean, they're just. It's not even about the skipped content that bugs me. Like, there's some moments I do wish that they spent a little more focus on that could help drive the story. But they skip out on so much or just make it seem kind of like this montage part of the story that just bugs me. And then they also added, I think, what was it, a recap episode too? Like midway in the season?
I don't
Not
know.
even midway. Right after episode 5, they put the recap episode.
Yeah, so that bugged me too, because I'm like, oh, at least maybe they're trying to buy time to make something better. And it didn't. So, yeah, I think about 2 or 3 more episodes, I'll probably get to the part where I like, or past the part I like, and then I can just say goodbye to the show. But, yeah, Isekai, I'm sorry, you're starting to die. Where's the truck for the Isekais?
Well, it does have a
No,
truck.
it's
just not the
unfortunately
one I
still
wanna
going
run.
on strong.
I can't
What?
believe I actually stopped through the whole thing.
So let's go ahead.
You guys aren't necessarily accounting all the young teenagers who'll eat this stuff up.
Well, there's some that are. I don't know. I'm starting to say we go back more towards the fantasy stories rather than the isekai stories. Because, even that one, that. I don't know. Let's just go to the next title, okay?
Examples, please.
It's just.
Oh wait, no, that's Isekai 2. Oh wait, no, that's Isekai 2.
No, because it's part of the season. I was thinking of that. I'll defeat the demon lord for my daughter. That's not really isekai, so.
No, it's not.
But, we could probably talk about that later.
Things like isekai and really long, stupid names sort of helps me out because I can just sort of filter those out automatically.
Actually, I thought the paragraph or sentence, I should say, as a name was kind of stupid, but then it really helps stick it in your memory instead of what was that 2-word thing. But yeah. As far as that Musume one goes, though, I don't know, which one technically has more viewers, Are Fureta or the Musume one?
But the Musume
I'd almost
one
have to look at the numbers on from the just say Crunchyroll end of things and kind of do some approximations.
Oh well. Let's just go to this next title, which I have no idea what it is. Given?
Yeah, that's another one that I'm probably the only one who watched it.
What is this? Where was this?
This was streaming on Crunchyroll, and it is a BL, which I have a complicated history with BL in that I have never watched a single one that I have liked, and that's usually because the relationships are toxic and the people are horrible, and there's lots of psychological abuse in them that's touted as cute or jealousy. Given is none of those things. Given is a story grounded in reality where two young boys get together and form a band with two other guys, and it's just about how they slowly realize they're falling in love, and the band is the backdrop of that. So it's a really pleasant little love story. I actually thought there was going to be another episode because it ended, I wouldn't say not abruptly, but it kind of felt like it needed one more episode just to wrap things up. There are only 11 episodes. And the singer is really interesting in that he's not the best in the world, but he puts so much raw emotion behind his performance that you can't help but feel exactly what he's feeling. So if you like Tank slice of life romance, then this would be a good one to watch.
Have you seen Dokusei, Classmates?
No, I haven't.
Like that short movie? Okay, well that came to mind, I guess. You were saying like you haven't seen a good boys love thing.
Mm-hmm.
that one is arguably good.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's boys love, but it had a lot of those BL moments, I guess you would say. It was in a show called Princess.
Oh, that one's, they're cross-dressers, right?
Yeah, that one I actually liked.
I remember hearing about that, but I never actually watched that, so that one's okay?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It was, at the time, I don't know how I would say it nowadays, but I think it's still an enjoyable title, because it's not really BL, but they have a lot of these weird moments, yeah. But I really enjoyed it, and maybe you would.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out, and you should try giving Given a chance, because it doesn't lean into a lot of the more fan servicey stuff. It doesn't put the relationship on display. It's just, here are two people, they're in love, and this is the emotional fallout from their love that they're dealing with. So it's pretty good.
Maybe I'll watch this with my mother, like I watched that other one. I remember like a few years ago I watched this one very BL type of show that I didn't know it was going to be that way. And my mother was watching it with me, so it was really weird.
Would you consider Sarah Zanmai to be BL? Because I liked that one. In that...
Yeah, I mean, it plays around with the genre in the same way that, like, Yuri Kuma Arashi plays around with the Yuri genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess it's not all bad. It's just that, in my experience, there's usually one of the love interests is very controlling and mean and putting down the protagonist constantly, and I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what was that one vampire show? Where they treated that girl like trash?
Diabolic Lovers.
Oh, what? It was like, Diabolic Lovers?
Mm-hmm.
That one was horrible. Yeah.
Is it compared to that? Like...
Oh my gosh. Well, you mean comparing Given to that?
No, like the titles you're talking about where BL's usually...
yeah, that's pretty much the relationship dynamic that they display. It's supposed to be hot? I don't know. I don't think it is.
Sounds like that's where the fantasy and reality clashes badly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the next title then. Speaking of fantasy and not isekai, we got Danmachi 2.
Yay.
Yeah, with the familiar war games going on with the phone app.
Oh, I thought you said familiar. I was like, what?
We got this nice little gem. So, the one thing I like about this show is also how it's moving along with the game that they have released out. Like, throughout the whole release of the series, every week they released a new character in the game that had something to do with the story that was going on at the moment. And so that was a fun little extra that you got with the show. And also...
You may call it fun, but...
Yeah, I mean, if you were lucky enough to get a high rolling card. But other than that, it introduced a lot of other things, and also the game also adjusted a lot of the info in the game to match the new series. So like we have some characters changing familias, and the game actually changed all their information to represent that somewhat. So it's kind of I really like that, how they're using the TV source to update the game in real time and everything. And also it introduced new events according to what the anime is showing. So Don Machi, of course, the second season also had a movie that came out earlier that I think was its own original thing. So it had nothing to do with the series. So if you've never seen the movie, you don't have to worry about that. And Don Machi just kind of picks up right after where they left off, getting out of the dungeon, I think, and introduces to a few more gods. And I think it's, would you say there's like two main arcs to this part of the series? I think the first arc is all about the familiar war games, and then they had a few like side stories, I would kind of call them, and then it jumped into the arc with Ishtar, the new goddess that they introduce throughout the series. And what were you saying?
Isn't Saito kind of comes after the Ishtar? Because it started with Apollo and the war game, then it did Ishtar and the whole that big brouhaha over that certain character. Then they wrapped up with a little, I guess, a small mini story about Ares, that bungling the god of war.
That's what I was saying. I think it was just two parts, right? So the war games and then Ishtar. That's what I was saying. Was there something in between?
Well,
No, in between. After the Ishtar, there's a little tiny, it's like a 2-3 episode worth about
Ares, I believe.
Yeah.
I didn't really notice that. Maybe I wasn't paying attention too much.
He was the last character.
Maybe you didn't watch.
Oh, I watched because the last one was they were leaving the village, right? Going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what he's talking about, though. That's not Ishtar, technically.
Well, I was just saying those were insert stuff just to fill in some time. Because it really didn't seem like a big arc to me, like the other two. Where they spent a few episodes. But, yeah, so we have a lot of new character introductions. Some characters are shifted around. There's this one YouTube site, I can't remember who they are exactly, that does a lot of these videos on skip content that I'm starting to watch that help fill in some of the gaps from the light novels. That was pretty fun. And then they also had this one video all about every single god that's been introduced within Danmachi, and tells you how their personalities and everything are put forth to kind of match what the god they represent in the different cultures. So like Ganesha and stuff like that, they explained why he's the way he is and stuff, and Apollo, why he was the way he was. And it was just pretty fun watching these this information about it. Kind of like how the Albert talked about how dumbbells, how the guy reviewed every single episode about the different weights and stuff like that from last season. I kind of liked having that extra information within this show to help fill in some of the gaps of some of the information that I might not know. But yeah, Danmachi 2 is still great. The last episode, I actually thought the quality fell a lot. There's some parts that I didn't really like. I was like, they kind of got lazy, but it's the last episode. They're just trying to finish it out, I think. Since it wasn't even that really grand of an episode to me. But other than that, if you were watching the first season you're definitely going to be watching this one. I think you'll probably still enjoy it because it's still pretty much a lot of the same good stuff and a lot of those moments where you just want to cheer for Belle.
See, I almost stand at kind of like a different opinion on that one, and I'm sure they'll watch it if they watched and really enjoyed the first season. I was never like heavily invested in this series. I watched the first one; it was comical, and I liked elements of it. And season 2 really didn't give me much more the same, because like season 1 was all about like the startup of Belle in from the coming perspective of season 2. So it's when he kind of, initially got going. It's where he initially built his skill. We saw his crazy level of progression. And this kind of comes out, and it is more about fleshing out the world, and it spends very minimum time in the dungeon. So much so that we don't really notice any of, like, Belle's growing strength as much. Like, we hardly ever see, like, his back tattoo thing get leveled up. We don't know anything more about his skills. There was really no advancement there other than the fleshing out of the world that they're in.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with you. They didn't target Belle so much in this one. It was more or less building on the familias and giving a lot of that background information because like now the familia has grown quite a bit. So
yeah,
I think it's a good preparation for whatever's going to be coming next.
By the end of season 1, there was 2 of them. By the end of season 2, it's I don't want to count.
About 4 more, I think.
I just said I didn't want to count.
But
I don't want to go to another hand.
Yeah, it's just a lot of. To me, I don't know. I still really enjoyed it, so I guess it's to everyone, depending on why you're watching it. At least it's not like that Sword. What was it?
No.
Following the Loki family, Sword of Turia or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Sword Art.
The other Danmachi spinoff.
Mm-hmm. Well, this one's like, not a spin-off, but gotcha.
But yeah, so let's see what's the next title we're going to talk about. I didn't prepare. Oh,
Well, you didn't have my data in yet.
I don't see your data still.
What the heck? Refresh your tab.
Oh, you.
How do you not see it?
Oh, it's.
Where are you looking?
I'm using half a page. Yours is outside of it.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and talk about Kibitsu. We'll go with your number 5 then. Kimetsu no Yaiba. That was your 5, right?
Yeah. So this one finally finished. It was continuing from last season. This was the what was it? Actually, UFO Table takes on a shonen-esque combat show. I just gotta say, my overall impression of it was actually positive. It didn't quite grip me with episode 1, but I gave it a further shot, just like seeing some of the graphics or some of the battle elements the studio was going to be putting out, and I got more and more vested into the story. So, because this one follows, oh gosh, what is his name? Tanjiro, who has like this like super olfactory sense. Like he can just smell human emotions and a bunch of other stuff. And it's probably not the first time this was done, but they did that kung fu-esque breathing techniques into a sword style kind of a thing. They didn't really put too much effort into explaining how the breathing technique works, but that's fine. That's how the other shows get by, is this is what stage this is going. I didn't need that here. But it did introduce a variety of fighting styles amongst a wide cast of characters. And I did find the show very enjoyable because Tanjiro was always thrown into rather difficult scenarios, and he always kind of like how Giorgio or Tank, sorry, always says how you want to, like, not that I ever want to cheer for him, but in that sense where it's like, and like the expressions of the characters and the overall art design, a lot of them have this like not like a weird but whoa, I think a cat just died somewhere. Pretty sure.
Oh, kitty.
Not my cat. Was being Sean's cat there.
Oh,
Like I wasn't coming from mine. But like,
hi there.
okay, so it always had this interesting progression, and the action was always somewhat ramped up, taking minimal times to explore some of the depth of the city here, or the land, so to speak, not just the city. But it introduced quirky characters that people can easily like. It had an interesting narrative. The combat was pretty gripping, I would say at the very least. And when the last episode hit, I didn't actually notice it was the final, but like it just caught my attention right away because they did this. They did this like what's that like famous painting where like everything's out of um dimension, so to speak, like staircases turn into walls and it's all
MC Escher's work.
sure. I don't know what it's called, but like apparently a demon
People might
generated
relate.
something a lot like that, but the studio just went full on CG. This immaculate, like the final episode had so much polish in it. It was just kind of crazy, and that's kind of when I knew it was going to be a finale. Because not to say that the rest of the every other episode before it looked bad, just the last one looked exceptionally good, and I always kind of hate when they do that because it kind of leaves you on a high note. But like after the credit rolled, they actually did this thing where they introduced the next arc. So they called this like the Tanjiro beginning arc or something like that. I didn't embed it in my memory. And it says the next thing coming out is going to be like the Flame whatever arc, but it's going to be a movie on the big screen. So it's like not even an announcement of season 2, just the announcement that the next bit of content's going to come out as a movie. And it's like, well, dang. That's at least you revealed what you're doing next, but I kind of find it bittersweet whenever like movies like this hit because we actually did just watch a season like 2 as a movie in theaters if you got to catch the Bunny Senpai thing. And I mean, I have my views on that. I won't say them now, but sometimes when you do season 2 as a movie, it can either be lacking when it's not supposed to be, or just not on par with like what a season would typically be. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
So, what do you call this? Kimitsu no Yaiba
Mm-hmm.
was a show I've been following when it first came out last season, and I still enjoy it. It's a nice shonen type story that you can easily just follow and watch, and I do have to say though, I was getting a little annoyed with that lightning dude and his crying and everything a little bit, but it wasn't to the point like Black Clover and that guy's yelling.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, no.
So it didn't get that bad, but it got pretty bad in some instance, and also the whatever that guy's name, the boar guy, he was a nice addition
Inosuke,
to
I
the team.
believe.
Yeah, he was a nice addition to the team. So I kind of like it how it's branched out from the first half to being just him being solo and his training, and then of course going out on his missions, to being more like this team of demon slayers now going out. And I think they've done like 2 missions with each other now, right?
Roughly.
So
Like, yeah, the one that they met, the last one, and then the training arc is like roughly when they've all been together.
yeah,
but-
so it was kind of fun. I will admit that some of the scenes are, to me, they were really heavy, especially with how with his sister,
Mhm.
when she's put into these situations that just Tanjiro just it's you could see the passion in there, and I think they really did a good job on him, on how he expresses himself and how he really feels for his sister and wanting to protect her. And but I did notice that at the end of it, I wanted to kind of get a sneak peek, so I found the manga and started reading it. And noticed that some of the content versus the manga were put in different order, but it still didn't destroy the story at all. So it didn't really matter about all that. But I'll have to say, if you don't want to be spoiled at all, don't pick up that manga. That thing is addicting. I picked it up just to get a sneak peek, and then I spent like 4 hours just reading. I was like, oh no, I gotta stop.
Yeah, like it is a pretty decent series. Like it's not the most gripping to come out, but it's probably a really good gateway for a lot of newer viewers. But one of the things that actually rubbed me the wrong way with the revelation of like the last episode was like like demons aren't really recognized, and I didn't really get how, because they would like abduct people in the city, like people would lose family members to them. But like in the last episode, these guys are carrying their demon slaying swords on their back, and we noticed police noticed them. Well, we didn't notice the police specifically noticed them. Went, hey, those guys have swords. We gotta go interrogate them. So they run over, and they're like, oh, let's avoid the cops because we're not an officially recognized thing. I'm like, so wait, the Demon Slayer Corps are this underground organization because the people in Moss don't believe demons are real, even though like people literally have like family members who have died by them? Okay. Like that's the only one thing I didn't really like about this show. That's about it.
I have a question. So I only watched up to when they're fighting the guy with the arrows on his hands and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do they ever get rid of that little bamboo thing in his sister's mouth? Because it's kind of pointless. She can shred someone with her hands. Who cares if she bites someone to death, right?
Well, the whole point is to not be too much of a temptation to consume something, but I get your point, but no, they don't ever take that away, because until they have her cured, they just don't want her to accidentally eat somebody.
Nice.
Should have kept bread.
But the thing is, like, I believe that they keep it in her mouth just so that she won't be able to bite, but they're not too afraid with her scratching or attacking people with her claws, because they've kind of conditioned her to think everyone is part of the family.
Yeah.
So that's why she tends to see her family members within other people at some certain points. So I think they kind of
is definitely a defender of humanity, but still, like, if that like vampiric level compulsion to, if there is, blood and gore in front of you, can you stop yourself from consuming if you're really hungry?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
like it's more, yeah.
But
in like old UFO table shows, they'd have those claymation skits at the end. I was just imagining claymation skits for this show.
No, but one of the things that I hated
bamboo with like different things. So like, here's a chicken leg or cheeseburger.
One of the things that the second thing that I hated, but this is not a fault of the show, because this is the fault of the people who translated it, is at the end of every episode, they would do a Taisho Uwasa or something like that, or the Demon Slaying Corps, something Uwasa, but they translated it as, a Demon Slayer Corps or a Captain Secret. And it's like, look, they're literally saying this is a rumor. They're not saying it is a secret. There's a difference between a secret and a rumor, but hey. Like, shame on the translator.
I kind of mean to watch some random arcs from this show, and this is just like, it appeals to my basest otaku-ness, where I like the character designs. They push my buttons. Mm-hmm. I think the characters look really good, and I think there are some arcs that aren't going to be as like screamy, power battle-y. It's like a friend of mine showed me some bits of it. I've also seen the episode where he like fights the spider dude.
Oh yeah, that was a really it was a really recent one. It was probably the last actual fight before they went to the training arc, which wasn't
Yeah, it was
a
like
fight at all.
episode 18 or something like that.
Yeah,
It's
getting
around
towards
there.
the end.
Yeah, it's a really nice looking show, and I like that UFO Table is adapting something that is not a video game.
And
It's been a very long time.
And the eye catches are also really nice looking.
Yeah, I can't recall them offhand, but I'll take your word for it. I mean, that said, it's like I have kind of an allergy to action anime, and my god, this thing, it goes like double hard on those tropes. You know, I saw that episode, and it was full of like, I have to have reasons for fighting, and he's torturing my sister, and if I don't do the thing, then my sister will die, and I have to use the technique of my ancestors, and here's the thing that my father told me. He said, one day, son, you're going to have to use this breathing technique. So you better get good at that shit. It's like, okay, I'm going to do it now. It's like, oh, man. It's just like this laundry list of shonen tropes. Just like going down the checklist. But I think there's some... I've heard that there are some arcs that are not really about that, and they're just like kind of fun demon yokai sort of stories.
So the thing I like about this compared to other stuff like Naruto back in the day is that it's not like after every single clash they have, they go and review why they did all those attacks. Like in Naruto, he's like, oh, this thing happened, and then they go back, well, this is why it happened. I turned myself into a clone, which was this, and then this happened, and that's why this led to this case, Naruto did a lot of that, and this one kind of doesn't do that at all, so I really like that part.
It's more like on the fly thinking. Like, Tanjiro as a protagonist is someone who will analyze the fight at hand. So like, he encounters a lot of weird techniques, and he kind of has to get the physics on what's going on with the technique, or like if he's thrown into the air, how he can survive landing. So he constantly kind of thinks about what rotation he should be doing to apply like power to things to save his life or have a better attack. So he's more thinking as it's happening instead of retrospective or perspective.
All right. So
I'll definitely be watching that movie though.
Oh yeah.
I'm still an anime fan to the extent that I want to see all the big anime movies, and like UFO Table doing a movie, that's automatically big.
One of the things I will say though, Sean, if you'll do me a favor, is to try to, in whatever way you can, just give that last episode a watch, click through until like you see parts that look really good, and just kind of
the final episode of the show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll probably watch it just to like prep myself for the movie at some point.
Well, like I'm hoping that's what UFO Table is going to do with the movie, but again, I don't know because most of the show didn't look like the final episode. Not that again it looked terrible or anything, just they didn't put as much polish as into the final episode there. And then when the final episode hits, it's like I just don't know what to think of a precursor for a movie or a timescale or anything. But heck, you could also watch the movie announcement. Not that it matters.
Should we talk about Fate Butterfly? should that be part of the show? Anyway, sorry, Tankun, go ahead.
We'll spend some time at the end for some movies, but let's go ahead and go to the next title we got here. I wrote it down somewhere. Endo Shobotai. And Endo Shobotai. So the firefighters.
Yeah, it's going to be called Fire Force in like English translation. So this was a show that kind of gripped me from the first episode. It had, a really polished action sequence, and that caused me to look into pretty much every subsequential episode, and it never really disappointed me. It's got a lot of tropes, and it's got a lot of, battle elements. So this one is set up in a world where, you can spontaneously combust, and we don't just mean explode. It literally means like turn into a fire demon and start wreaking havoc on things. So we have what we call a fire force, which is a team of typically pyromancers, actually, of all things, who go to the scene and fight fire with fire. One of the two caveats here is there are generations of fire users. I don't know what a first generation one is, but there's a 2 and a 3. And a 2 means you can manipulate flame, a 3 means you generate flame. But this series is rife with people who have fire-based abilities. And I usually like shows that get, combat-y and gimmicky like that. And one of the bigger mysteries to this show that's revealed a lot later, just because I'm going through and kind of spoiling a whole bunch of stuff, is there's a terrorist organization in the background. And it's like, what is this terrorist organization doing? What's their thing? Oh, they're looking for someone who's has like a really good or really pure, as though like of the fire god himself, flame ability. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, what's this? They made a little bug, which they can hold up to somebody, and if it crawls inside of them, it gets to their heart, and then it makes like a pseudo fire combustion thing going on. Yeah, like there's a terrorist organization that's like pseudo fire combusting people.
This all sounds very familiar.
And
like
now,
the bad guys have figured out how to make artificial powerful people as opposed to naturally powerful people.
And plus, they're more just still trying to find someone who has a pure flame, even though it never manifested in them. But like, that's just part of the mystery that's being unveiled right now. Is, well, why are they doing that? Let's stop them. We don't exactly know their like. We have a vague sense of their motive, but we just don't know the reason why. There's a lot of overtones in this series, particularly around religion. There are literal nuns who kind of show up on scene and pray for the soon-to-be, passed over victims. There is kind of a weird atheistic society at play. I mean, there's only like one dude, or I don't know, a whole city. Then there's that like the anti-terrorist organization. But all the elements that I watched of it is like, I think if I was a new fan, just knowing my tastes, this would have been something like, if I started watching it just yesterday, this would be like one of my favorites.
So
Now, go ahead.
So because of you guys talking about this and just describing the fire animation at the beginning of the season,
Mhm.
I decided to go and watch this, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I've been up to date on it, and it was just a pretty fun show, as you said. There were some other fun things that I like in the show that I was able to pick up. Over the years of watching anime so long, you start learning to pick up some words and some things. So being able to catch these without having to look them up, I thought was pretty fun. Like, if you didn't notice, everyone in that sisters or in the orphanage were all named after flowers
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So I thought that was kind of fun and how they did that. And also, I love how they, even though this fire is supposed to be bright and everything, every once in a while you'll just see the main character. I can't remember his name right now, but he's always like in this darkened pose with his silhouette and his eyes just glowing. And I was always like wondering why his eyes glows, but then I finally noticed after a while that whenever they use their pyrokinetics abilities, their eyes kind of start glowing. And I started noticing a lot of little things, so it's been really fun watching this show and picking up on some of this stuff that's been going on.
I will observe casually that like I've seen the first episode and I've seen bits of like middle episodes. It's a very Shaft looking show because it's made by ex Shaft people, and it's like one of those things you have to keep in mind. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Just the way they frame their characters, their approach to lighting, just all these like visual presentational aspects are very Shafty.
I also like how they make the infernals or the threat of the infernals terrifying. Because anyone can become an infernal at any time, and we don't know why or how that's happening. And it's not just no, boom, I'm an infernal now. Oh no, it's painful. They do not shirk away from depicting it as a horrible, horrible thing. And I also like the whole religious angle. Is that, yeah, we've definitely heard this plot in shonen before, where bad guys are able to make the very demons that we're fighting against, but this is for a religious ideology that these guys want to pursue. And I'm not saying that's never been done before, but it's an unusual take on the whole trope. And so for that, I'm going to give it a pass.
Something else that adds character to the show that I just kind of recalled is the quirkiness of the protagonist's Fire Force. They're like, what, Division 13 or whatever their number is? 8? We do see it near the end of the season, or core, because I don't think it's ending now. There is a different Fire Force that shows up to the scene at one point, and they kind of assess the threat levels of the Infernals, which kind of makes sense. But then they go, okay, we're gonna fully pursue the most threatening, and then come back to the one that's not a threat. And we kind of have this point of contention where a character goes, well, they're a person too. They're actively suffering. Can't you just let a person or two go to the non-threat and deal with that? And it's kind of like one of those tough call scenarios, because it's about how you just kind of run things as a manager, so to speak. While that's a viable option, will they become a threat? Will you lose people? Who knows? But that wasn't the point of that moment. The point of that moment was just kind of maintaining ethics and humanity, and that's something that's always present in this show, is how human the views of, say, the captain of the force is, and kind of like what he's shaping his force into becoming. And that's just something that that gets style points for me and makes me like it even more.
Same here. And they also show the effects on the bereaved.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just, Infernal of the Week, let's go beat him up, put him down, and then that's it. It's, no, we're going to show you everything from the lead up to him or her turning into an Infernal, and then we're showing you the aftermath where the priestess or the nun is comforting the person that just watched their loved one go up in flames. So it's pretty poignant for a shonen. And have any of you read the manga?
No.
I'm really curious as to how closely this cleaves to it, because the author of the manga is the guy that does Soul Eater, and his type of stuff is usually not like this. So I'm wondering if this is him trying a different genre, or if it's someone taking his idea and elevating it to what we have here.
So the other thing that I started noticing as you get further in, and it's kind of interesting because at the beginning it's not really brought out a lot until you get near the end, but rather than also just fighting these infernos and everything, you have a lot of distrust and they're like fighting against each other as the fire force as well. So that's another underlying thing that's going on, keeping secrets, wanting to get up on the others. Oh, this is my district, we're take care of, don't go in our area and stuff like that, which was another big thing I thought that was pretty fun that they added to. So it's not just, oh, here's the bad guy, we got to defeat it. No, there's all these other things that we got to watch out, even our allies.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on under the hood of this show.
So, yeah, so I definitely would recommend this to a lot of people. Let's go ahead and go to the next title, which I'm going to get Vincent here to start talking. We'll cover a title he saw, which is Uchi no Musume no Tame Naraba Ore wa Moshi. Yeah, that super long title that Sean hates. Translated to, if it's for my daughter, I'd even defeat a demon lord. So, I watched the first few episodes, but it was so close to the light novel, I'm like, I can get by with just reading the books. But, Vincent, what would you say? What do you think of that show? Is Vincent not here?
I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, sorry. I was talking for no reason then. Uh, it's your prototypical light fare series. There's nothing serious going on, other than the first episode where things looks pretty doom and gloom with encounter. But after that, it just turns into pretty much a 10-episode long worth of a long wishy fest of how this person who picked her up becomes so infatuated with her, taking care of her and raising her as a daughter, and she could do no wrong. She's likable. Yeah, it's all that. It has a lot of fluff. There's really nothing that stands out one way or another. I mean, quality is passable. There's nothing that strikes you as memorable. It's one of those that you can kind of watch. If you like those light fare, nothing serious about it, then just move on to the next season's worth of it.
They do have one really dark moment.
Oh, about the time when she broke up her home.
Yeah, covering like racism amongst the demons
Yeah,
and stuff
but
like that.
that kind of that was just basically covered in a one single contained episode, and after that it kind of moves on as if nothing really happened. There's a little bit of flashback from here and there, but they kind of turned that into more of a lighter moments where how Broken Horns got divided into two of the classmates where they turned into the jewelry figures for them to keepsake, and it's they do, there's a little bit of revelations about the origin of the caretaker and his village, and as to how they're very different from the rest of the world, but they don't really go into serious politics or anything. It's just more about, okay, we are going on this trip back to my hometown to give a report, and we're coming back, and everybody's gonna be all happy to see, and time goes on, yada yada yada. I think they could have done a little bit more to devote some time and efforts towards their her origin as a demon race, because they do mention from time to time about how her time flows differently than the human race, and there's a little bit of a mentioning about how demon race's hierarchy stems from the resurrections of the demon lord, which some of them seems to be absent at the time, and sounds like there is going to be some kind of ramification down the future. But I guess since this is really one single season, I guess they really didn't want or time or effort to go beyond that. So there's a lot of nuggets thrown in there, but nothing to really warrant whether they're actually going to pick up on it or not.
Yeah, this is kind of a show that really kind of confused me, because by its title, you would have think that it covered a lot different of subject matter, which just kind of goes into, is this foreshadowing? Will this be all disclosed in a season 2, 3, or 4? Who knows? But one of the kind of reasons to watch this show is, say if you're a new parent and you ever wanted to know what a child who never really expressed id and just had like a really good personality from the start was, this is your show. Because that girl was like a perfect angel. And not like your typical bratty kid. So if you're a parent who ever wants to know what it's like to not really have a bratty kid, hey, she really isn't. You don't know kids if you're going to say she is.
Yeah, I came across a couple of bratty kids, and they're nothing like her.
So, I guess this is the slice of life of the season?
This
Or
and
is-
this and one other title I'll say,
What was the
but
other one?
it's up there.
What's the other one,
I
just
think-
out of curiosity?
I think the Machikada Majoku is also sort of slice of life, light fare type. That's sort of a light construction of a magical girl theme, but nothing serious about it.
Yeah, I'm near finishing that one.
Actually, let's go ahead and you go to that for our next title. Because I was actually talking about this a little bit before the hangout, that this was something that was kind of like a hidden gem to me. Because there's no really good streaming sites out there with it that I saw. Like, I don't even know where it's streaming publicly. So I ended up watching the first half on some unknown website and really liked it, but never finished it because, I couldn't find that site again.
Oh.
But, like, how is it throughout the whole thing? Because I only saw, like, the first part of it.
Pretty much goes, well, it does go somewhere, but general mood really doesn't change. The one day the girl wakes up and get the foreshadowing that she's one of the great descendant of this great demon, and she sprout a horn, and the horn that resembles croissant and the tail to symbolize that she's a demon. Then she come across this magical girl who has this obscene amount of powers and whatnot, who turns out to be her classmate and all the whole nine yard. Later on, they do drop us some bigger issues, some of the things that you really didn't think of much as to, okay, whatever happened to her father who's perpetually absent? Then it turned out that there was a reason why her father is absent, and that brings up the whole issues of, which kind of confuses me. That I figure that in current sort of magical girl deconstruction themes, there's hierarchies and orders as to which generations of magical girls are protecting wherever, whatever. And all of a sudden, they're dropping all these things about how her Momo's predecessor was the great guardians of the city, who's responsible for banishment of her fathers, and they're putting a curse on the family and all that. Problem is that they drop all that in the last 3 episodes. All of a sudden, when there's about 6 episodes of nothing going on, of the girl who's trying to train to be stronger and failing, and just going through the whole daily life motion. It's almost as if somebody forgot to take the notes that this was meant to be a one core season, and all of a sudden they realize, oh my god, it's episode 10, we gotta wrap this thing up and just rush to the end. But I think I said it somewhere before, but this series reminds me a lot of what Dogakobo would be working on. Their prototypical light comedy fare. Style seems to be similar. The pacing is somewhat similar. There's nothing too serious or gory, or each one of your don't think too much of it. Just enjoy the whole floppiness of it and moving on type of series.
Yeah. So what surprised me and why I liked it so much was that it's actually it flips the roles in a way and it makes it very comedic, because rather than the bad guys or the demons ruling everything, she's actually, her family's super poor, and she's having a time.
400, yeah.
And then she becomes the next one, and she has to defeat the magical girl. Then they realize that she can't even hold a candle to her. Like, she's out of breath running down the street, while the other girl's like not even batting an eye. And I just loved all the situations that she would be strung through, and that because of her poorness and stuff, like whenever certain things happen, like she ends up in debt to the magical girl for borrowing some money, and just, even though they're enemies, since the magical girl doesn't see her as a threat, she doesn't really do anything to her. But it's kind of funny seeing how there might be this kind of like relationship or friendliness that could become when you first get started.
Yeah, this friendship does build up gradually, which I liked, and I guess I like the part about them making fun of the magical girls of familiar. In this case, it's the cat who has a sort of gone senile, So who just randomly sprout the catchphrase, which just cracks me up every time I hear it. Because sometimes I expect, okay, maybe the cat will actually have a moment of lucidity and actually do something meaningful, which kind of does it for like half an episode, but that's in the dream sequence, not in the real world where that cat just reverts right back to her typical self. And those are kind of like a little bit of comedies I enjoyed as well.
Yeah, like it was hard for me to tackle some elements of this show because you did have this like the Demon Lord isn't this almighty entity where the heroes have to, band together to defeat. They were really starting from zero, and the magical girls were always this like established presence where if you are a magical girl, you're just kind of strong because you were made into a magic girl. And it didn't one of the things that settled early in the series was the sense of coexistence, and I did appreciate that. Like I did kind of like how things were going that route. But then like we kind of have like and the funnier thing is the magical girl that we're introduced to is known for being one of the weakest. She's like, I'm actually not that strong and I have trouble with a lot of stuff like that a magical girl is supposed to do. And like the protagonist is like, "What? You're the weakest and I'm having this much trouble against you? What?" But I didn't really get the whole point of it all, so to speak, because like the magical girls had their turf that they had to defend, and they saved the world a few times. They'd kind of drop, but then it's like, who are you fighting? Because they did fear that a demon, when the one was coming in from another area, they thought that one of the demons lost themselves in their power and was going on this rampage, which was not the case. But it's like, what's the evil entity here? And that might be revealed in the last episode. I just didn't get there yet. So like if I'm saying
No,
something obvious, I'm sorry.
no,
But
they did not really reveal any of that.
yeah, because like she calls in help, which it expanded the cast of characters and it made more humor and it was nice. It had some nice quirks, but it's like, what's the danger here? Like, what's the point of the magical girls? Like, I get that there could be other demons, sure, but that's like not the point of the show, and I don't really I don't really expect him to go there. It's just
Mhm.
questions left unanswered kind of a thing. The show was still rather enjoyable.
I think the original source material is the full Koma, those four cut comic books, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
expect to have
Oh
a
yeah.
serious contents in it. Um, but having said that, it does have some serious pacing issue at the end. It's almost like they couldn't make up their mind as to whether they got a green light for the second season to divulge in more information that leads to answer some of the questions that brought it out there, or is this gonna be sort of continuation to be determined and just left in the back burner and see if it ever gets picked up for second season? Because even if they actually try to explain a lot of them, including the protagonist's mom, who really hasn't done much of anything until the last couple episodes, she doesn't divulge a lot of information, but even that still doesn't answer many of the questions of the greater evil that seemingly doesn't seem to exist in this town. Not with the ancestor who's trapped in this doll thing, or the protagonist who has no power through and through.
Okay. So, anything else to say about the show, or like, would you say it's worth it watching it, or?
If you're a fan of those light comedy slice of life things, sure. If not, you could probably watch the first two episodes, and that should give a good idea as to where the rest of the series goes. Because the quality really doesn't go anywhere. It's pretty steady as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't get any worse. It doesn't get really any better. But then it's sort of a light comedy affair, so you don't expect to see this fantastic quality of work to begin with. Everything's pretty abstract as is.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next title we got here, which is going to be Kochoki Wakaki Nobunaga.
Yeah. There's another one that only I've seen. You're welcome.
What is this?
This is the life and times of Oda Nobunaga, but it's the early years of his history. And I'm a history nut. I absolutely adore history, and we don't know a lot about his life in that time period. So this show is an attempt to kind of reconcile that historical amnesia that we all have and try and figure out, okay, who was this man as a young child? And I was looking forward to this because I thought it would be an interesting character study to see how someone turns completely brutal in their adult life. Is what must have their life have been like. But this show doesn't really go there. It sticks its toe in the water of gritty reboot and then goes, nah, water's fine over here in the bright splashy kiddie pool. So we're gonna do that instead. And I was pretty disappointed, especially because it just ended so abruptly. Like, not even, it didn't feel like a conclusion. Is that I actually had to go and look up and find out how many episodes this was supposed to have. Yeah. Because it ended with episode 10, I think? 10 or 11. So I can't really recommend this to anyone, especially if you like history. If you don't like history, it doesn't even make a good dramatic piece, really, because there's no real resolution. So it's unfortunate because it had so much potential. Oh, there's a kitty again. Well, you've lost your seat, Sean. You're not gonna get it back.
Something's wrong with your video, or is that only on my side?
Oh, me?
I see her fine, but I don't know what's going on your end.
Okay, it's all green and pixelated.
Oh
Nope, I see you, Jessica.
no.
Well,
I look okay on my end.
We'll see what YouTube sees when we
Oh,
check.
It looks fine here.
My computer's just messed up then. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next, or
unless you guys have any questions about it.
I don't even know what this is. Is it?
I think it's aimed at women because every man in here is incredibly hot. The really irritating thing too is they do the introduction where they have the person's name underneath them when they show up, and it's completely unnecessary because so many characters will come on screen and will say, "Hi, I'm so and so's younger brother," and underneath them it will be their name, like Yamada Taro, and then underneath that, so and so's brother. Or someone will come, "Hi, I'm the Minister of Affairs," or "Hi, I'm this advisor," and then it will repeat that, and it's just distracting. They really didn't need to put that in there at all. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to say unless you guys want to know more about it.
Sorry, can't say that I do. I didn't even know it existed until now.
No.
I sarcastically say I'm sure Sean would have something to ask you, but it seems Cat's got his tongue.
Oh! Nice.
Alright, let's go to the next title then. Another thing I have no idea about is, what is this? Where's the title? Kanata no Astra?
So, Kanata no Astra was kind of a typical Lost in Space title. So, yes, I've played Star Ocean before. It's a pretty fun genre, but that's, what I always go to when I think of kind of like thrown out into space and you have to kind of get back home. So, it starts off with a group of high schoolers who are going to go on to a trip to a planet. Now, this is set far into the future where interplanetary travel is no big deal. There's like faster than light travel. So they all get on a ship. Another character has a small, like one of her little sisters come with them. and they're dropped off on the surface of a planet saying, hey, we're going to pick you up in like a week. There's like a cabin somewhere. Go take your school trip. So they start kind of walking to the boat to get to their cabin, and all of a sudden this weird orb appears, and they don't know what it's doing, and it starts kind of moving towards them. So they're still kind of wearing their spacesuits, so one guy gets the idea to say, yo, like, everyone put on your helmets, we don't know what this thing is. And it engulfs people kind of one by one. Next thing you know, they're cast out into space, kind of adrift. Things are looking bad because now you're in space. You used to be on the surface of a planet. Much of the characters are kind of bunched together, and they happen to notice that there's a spaceship over that way. Let's get to it. So they all kind of get aboard, and one of their first crises that they find is, hey, one of our guys has like a broken communicator, and they're way the crap out that way. And there's like no way we can go get them with our little spacesuit thrusters. They're really far out. So a person gets to go do a rescue mission anyway. He like, I think he takes like a cord, a real thing, or they get it to him later. My order of events is a little bit different because I only gave it one run through. But essentially, they all band together and save the one person who's cast out. Upon getting to the ship, they discover that it's functional. It can get power from sunlight. It's not technically solar. It had some other mechanism. It's capable of faster than light travel, but their next big thing is to find out how far out they were cast. To which it's like, I don't remember the exact number, but like let's just say like 200 light years away or something from their respective planet, Astra. So they kind of have a new dilemma. They're like, even if we start like transiting there with faster than light travel, it'll take about a month to get home. They're like, okay, so what's the problem with that? Well, we can only hold about 3 days worth of food and water. 3 days worth of food and water a month does not make. And they concoct this plan where, they have a doom and gloom moment, but that's very common in this show, where it's kind of somewhat revealed that, hey, let's just have a look and see if there's a string of planets, like, how everyone banded together and we got everyone saved when the one person was way out there. Can we hop from hospitable planet to hospitable planet and make a chain all the way home to eventually get there in just a little bit longer than a month due to the days you would have to take out to restock supplies? And, one of the guys uses the ship's computers to figure out all the stars in the area and says, wow, there's exactly a 6 sequence of planets we can take to get home. And it's like the only one. We don't even have any options. And it's about at this point where it's revealed that somebody was put onto the ship as an assassin. Oh, yeah, that's right. There was a communicator on the ship that was disabled after they all got on it. Somebody was looking at it and they're like, hey, this thing was broken recently. And I forget what the revelation was on how they knew somebody was trying to like kill most of the classroom. But they're like, somebody was supposed to do us in. And one person is designated the captain and is kind of says, look, we all just need to work together to get home right now. We can worry about that along the way. I don't want to be doubting us right now. Let's just do the best teamwork we can and get home and, see what we can do about that when we get closer. So that's kind of what the anime starts up into. We have, when you hit a planet, you have to figure out, what can you eat? What's edible? How dangerous is it? These guys don't really have anything to defend themselves with. They came from a really peaceful society where like guns and weapons weren't really a thing that you had to worry about. So most of the early-ish parts of the core, or every few episodes, you're kind of hopping to a new planet. Where this is the one thing where I think it will actually clash with what people want from an anime, but they tried to make ingenuitive planets that had really different ecosystems from Earth. Now, none of the planets, I will spoil and say, had like actual sentient, like speech-capable life forms, but of the unique life forms that developed on the planet and the unique ecosystem that it evolved was kind of the showcase of the let's scavenge for food, deal with any like defense mechanisms that most of the predators of this planet have, and get on to the next planet. And all along the way, characters are talking about their pasts. And it's striking one of the characters kind of weird that most of them have very conflicted relationships with their parents. They never seem to be cared for and or like held at arm's length. And he couldn't really put a finger on it until much later. Now, this is where I'm going to get a bit spoilery and kind of tell you that everything, like the whole planet hopping aspect aside, was a duality to this story. The other half of it felt like one of the weird, like classic books on, to me at least, just like one of the Hatchet, or not quite for the survival aspect, but like something that you'd have to read in school is what it always seemed like this thing's message was trying to kind of convey. And
if I may interrupt, I want to see the rest of this, and I haven't
okay.
gotten the chance, so I don't want any, X is the bad guy kind of stuff.
Well, darn, because I wanted to...
Oh, if you think it's worth watching.
I liked it personally, but I can't say that it was super worth it. I could only say, if you would, mute, and we'll give you like a signal in chat to come back.
Okay, let's see. How do I mute you guys?
Oh, or just like, yeah, or turn like computer speakers all the way down or whatever. Oh yeah, you could just maybe mute me.
Oh yeah, I can do that. All right, I'm muting you.
All right. We good? Muted? All right.
I can't believe X was the bad guy the whole time.
So...
You bastard!
One of the characters decided to do, for whatever reason, kind of a DNA test on two of the characters to figure out like how close they were, or like if they had the same mother. And it was revealed to him that, because like everything was ran through the captain. So when the guy who conducted the test got with the captain, he's like, yo, that one girl from our class that we, just ran the DNA test on? He's like, yeah. And that little sister she has? Uh-huh. They have the same DNA. And he goes, yeah, I kind of suspected. Well, not really. But it turns out that back on the surface of the planet, there was two technologies kind of being messed with. One was a memory implementation, so you can literally electronically pass on memories. And the other was laws forcing you to actually register your DNA as to your identity, kind of like, say, a forced fingerprint. But in this series, they were forcing a DNA signature. And it turns out that all of this classroom was arranged because they were clones to inherit the memories of basically their parents and kind of continue on their legacy as, well, the parents were going to live on through their clones is essentially what was going on here. And the reason they sent them off to camp is because they wanted to kill them all there, because with the government necessitating DNA mapping as, fingerprinting as unique to your identification, they were going to be found out. So they sent them all on this camp to die, and they didn't really, I guess, anticipate them being thrown into space and finding a spaceship and kind of coming back. So they kind of had to kind of figure out, like, oh, that's why none of our parents ever seemed to care for us, because they couldn't care for us as people, because they were going to, like, literally force us to become them. Like, we were just their vessel to continue on their life, and when they were going to be caught by the law, that's what became of us. That was really revealed towards the end of the trip. Something else that happened along the way, there was a planet where they hit and they got disabled on. So their disabled craft kind of ruined their journey. But, this is an anime and we all know it's not going to end there. They come across a near exact match on a craft that was also crash landed on the planet. And upon investigation, they found one person in cryostasis. they woke the person up and found out that they were asleep for like 4 years or something like that. And she goes, well, what happened to the rest of my crew? They, go over the surface of the planet. They find that the crew members were eaten by a planetary predator, and that kind of answered that. So they all start going on the way home with the new astronaut. And it's further revealed that that astronaut was from Earth, but these guys are from Astra. What is going on here? Like, the depthening of the plot here was just another element to kind of convey Earth actually had an impending meteorite strike, and that was literally going to doom the planet. So Earth at the time had to come up with how they were going to get by it, and the answer was to go to a nearby Earth-like planet. The wormhole technology that we saw that cast the guys out to space was actually what humanity used to migrate planets. And the planet that they arrived outside of was actually Earth, after it was stricken by the asteroid and no longer looked like the blue planet that we knew of it. It was further kind of conveyed that there was actually a cover-up that happened because nobody knew that they ever migrated planets. Like, you would think that you would learn that in history class, but they're like, no, the planet as we know it was always called Astra. What is this Earth that you're talking about? And it was literally an attempt to kind of unify humanity. I believe in their history, it was World War III that unified humanity. But from the person from Earth's perspective, is like, wait, World War III? Tell me more. Like, what about this World War III? And when humanity migrated to a new planet, the government decided to tell all the parents, to everyone who made the migratory trip, to reset the year 100 years back. And literally cover up the fact that they ever planet hopped to begin with, but in the process they wanted to restructure society, made one unified language, did away with religion, and just kind of tightened up a lot of weaponry laws and kind of like forcing peace to happen. And it kind of worked out well for them. They covered up the wormhole technology because it led to almost World War III, even though it never did happen and that wasn't technically true. But humanity migrated, reset the clocks 100 years back, and everybody of that generation, being like, 4 or 5 generations later, were none the wiser because everybody played along with it who originally came over. No one decided to, I guess, write down the fact that they were all from the past. Or not past, but another planet.
How many people are involved in this conspiracy?
Well, I want to get to, because Jessica still might hear you, but I'll just leave it at the government. Or you mean how many people had like the clones, or what? Like, what's your question? I forget.
I'll have to admit that I wasn't paying full attention, but I'm just wondering, on the conspiracy plausibility scale, how many people have to like take this secret grave in order for the thing to work? Are we talking about like 50 people, 100 people, 100,000 people?
Probably closer to 100,000 originally, but once it was buried, it was buried.
That's just never going to work.
Yeah, but no, it did work in this anime, but that's fine because it's anime.
But it's anime.
So, I just didn't want to get too spoily for Jessica if that gave her too much of a hint or not. But so they basically get done with the planet hop, and they're on the last planet, or no, I think they came out of their going home warp a little bit early to sit just outside in communications and kind of figure out how they were going to re-enter society. Because they're like, we basically unearthed our history that our own planet didn't tell us about. Our parents are basically going to all, as we know them, kind of go to jail because they did an illegal human experimentation thing. The government's definitely going to have them. But, like, how do we break this story and not get, like, kind of covered up? So they reach out to, I believe, someone who was like a budding journalist or something, and I mean, it all kind of works out. They get the message through. They have somebody who's going to meet them out in space and kind of like, you know, basically the space police, as awkward as that sounds, kind of escorts them back in. All the parents were kind of discovered of what they tried to do, and they were all held accountable. And it was more about the life that the clones were now given the chance to live, despite their parents trying to be really overbearing. Like, because like one person was a famous singer, and you know, their clone happened to be a really good singer, but she didn't want her clone daughter to pursue to get known for being a singer, because it would just be kind of awkward when the mother took over the clone body. And there's a little more to it than what I've described, because I didn't want to like say all of the story. Like there's a little more to some of the relationships of the clones and their parents and society as a whole. But I just kind of appreciated having that level of like duality upon duality of story to this thing. Like, I really didn't expect, like when I saw it was like, you know, a Lost in Space, find your way back home type story. I didn't really expect it to go into much more, and I did feel comfortable. At no point did I feel like there was like an alternative dimension at play, because like sometimes if you have somebody from another planet, it's like, oh, they're from another dimension. But the way the story kind of worked out, I'm sure some people have that theory who like to analyze these stories, but the whole time I was like, nah, I don't think that's a play here. I think they're going to kind of work their way around that, and they absolutely did. But it was just an interesting story on, you know, what to look out for in a society where what people try to do if you could hand down memories, I guess. And we're capable of doing human cloning. Although that last one is kind of current society, but you know, will we ever be able to hand down memories? Who knows? Will someone ever try to?
To hand down memories, you needed an isekai truck.
No, that's to move memories to another dimension.
That works the same. Maybe we can change it somehow.
Hey Nick, have you ever played any of the Metal Gear Solid games?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was about to like recommend Metal Gear Solid 2. Length that's it was like, man, this is Metal Gear Solid convoluted.
All right.
I was more of a Metal Gear fan. I never got too heavily into Metal Gear Solid, or Metal Warrior or something.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid.
Cardboard boxes hiding under them.
Yeah. Okay.
Snake Plissken.
Yeah.
Like the story was a bit convoluted, but like it was enjoyable. But you kind of had to bear with it when it had the fanciful like ecosystems on the planets that they visited. But like a lot of it was also like the character development and the weirdness of all the characters, because like there was a character who they didn't know why, but when they were a clone, they were actually also a designer baby, in the fact that the artist, because the parent was an artist, and as an avant-garde artist, when they moved to another body, they didn't want to have a definitive gender, so they made an intersexed clone. But the clone, didn't necessarily know that that's the reason why that they were the way that they were, until they found out that, hey, our parents were going to move into our own bodies. Like, okay.
Vincent, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. I'm going to go to the next title, and we need you.
Oh.
So, that was Asta,
Kanata no Asta.
right? And that's on Funimation, I believe, right now.
Oh, I think that other one you were talking about, the Demon Girl Next Door, was on like High Diver VRV or something.
Yeah, maybe that's why I didn't watch it. But this next one is on Crunchyroll, and it's another one of those Albert would call trash animes because it's an isekai cheat, no less, magician. And I actually gave up on this the first few episodes, and even the book. I'm like, ooh, this could be a fun book, and then I read the first part of it. I'm like, yeah, never mind. So why did you stick with it?
Maybe I'm gluten for punishment. That's really one way to describe it. I mean, all those times we talked about or bashing about how terrible the CG monster quality was Arifreta. Isekai Cheat Magician was just horribly animated through and through. I think I mentioned a few times it draws in parallel with the Mausama Retry, but except where Mausama Retry was consistently dismal quality, so you kind of come to just accept that that's just a way to animate it, whereas an Isekai Cheat Magician started off decent, then it just went to dive and it never recovered from there. I think I mentioned one episode where seemingly every frame has everybody drawn differently for all the wrong reason. And combined with the whole fact of what this two characters going on this power trip, and there's always this shady conspiracy brewing and what have you. I don't know. I still don't know why I end up sticking through the whole 12 episode. I cannot explain it. It was just there's that isekai-ness, and then there's a horrible quality of animation, and maybe there's like some part of me hoping that it will somehow recover, which it never did. And this series has a lot of battle sequences. There's a one episode where this was supposed to be a climax of trying to defend the city from being ran over by hundreds of monsters from above ground and under the ground. And I noticed that was the episode with one of the poorest quality of animation. And I'm thinking, where's the justification of making it look so terrible? And please somebody take over because I really cannot say any more positive things about this one.
I mean, yeah, I can't say exactly why I carried into watching it either. I do tend to somewhat enjoy the isekai ones. I think what vested my interest in is because it was called Cheat Magicians, and the characters always said they were cheating. I guess I really wanted to quantify how much more superpowered they were, but I was a little disappointed because, like, when a lot of times you have an overpowered character, they have lots of powers. Like, they're capable of doing lots of things they have no equal. In, like, say, another world with a smartphone or whatever. Like, no one can come close to what they do. And in this series, that wasn't so much the case. Yes, they are powerful. Yes, they kind of don't have an equal. But, like, it had conditions. And I didn't necessarily get why. Because, like, there is a character who, can physically buff himself and become strong, but he had somewhat of a weakness to magic only. There is another character who's capable of casting any element of magic, which that's what makes her cheat, and they both have vast mana pools, like more than they should. But when conducting combat with, like, say, another mage or certain groups, there are times where our two protagonists do have problems. Like, their cheat level isn't really helping in all cases. And that might have been why I decided to kind of stay with it as long as I did, but I was kind of met with kind of like what Vincent was getting at. Most times when you're reincarnated or summoned, in this case summoned, to another world, you really don't know why. And in this series, it was revealed that there was two kingdoms about to go to war, and not kingdoms, a king and his brother, who is another kingdom, but who's worried about the kingdom, but is going to like lead a revolt against the way his brother does things. And I guess that's why they summoned him, because they needed them as like a fighting force power. But like something happened with the summon and didn't go well. Another person came over, and it's revealed much, much later in the show that for whatever reason, everything was under the plan of this. I want to say like a dark god. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but at least a really omnipotent entity with vast amounts of power control. Because they kind of literally behind the scenes manipulated the society into the younger brother wanting to revolt against the thing, necessitating the summon, kind of picking who was going to come with like knowing who like what the summoner was going to look for, or being or able to preordain some things. Like everything was literally calculated to the point where when the cheat magicians came over, all the opposition that they fought or were soon met with was again manipulated by the entity helping them grow for a purpose that the viewer does not currently know. It's like, why did you stage this war to get these guys summoned to make them how, like, for what purpose? And that wasn't answered by the final episode, meaning that while this show can continue, it was at least an interesting take on like the isekai, because it's like literally you were summoned by not who you thought you were summoned by, and every conflict you've encountered was engineered by them in order to promote your growth. Like, that's pretty much non-standard isekai in my book.
So, Vincent, which is worse, this or Arifureta?
I wouldn't even want to answer that.
Feels like those two are two sides of the same hell.
I'd say this one was a bit worse, because like the only thing it really had going for it was that weird premise of that manipulative force in the back. Whereas there's just much more to enjoy with Arifureta as far as the concept of it. Like you say, you love the books, even if the anime wasn't good. A lot of the way that the story was engineered was good. A lot of the characters are good. In this show, I if I had to pick if I had to honestly choose which season 2, if you had to continue watching, which would you rather? Arifureta season 2 over Cheat Magician season 2.
Yeah, I'll actually have to go with Nick on that regards as to which season 2 you are more likely to watch or drag yourself into. Arifureta probably will be it. And I don't really buy the whole notions of this greater force, somewhat of an unknown that's hold behind pulling all the string kind of thing, because it feels like that's kind of something that's been done with other isekai series like Re:Zeros and what have you. So that part really does not interest me so much. And I think it just made it worse that they underutilized all the characters they were given with in the first series. They could have done so much more or so much better with it. The battle quality was terrible, animation quality was terrible.
I don't know, like
the pace.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's some episodes there's just so much discrepancy. So it just makes me want to wonder. It's like I want to just go skip all the way to the end and just look at the credits and see how many subcontractors were responsible for this episode, so that I can at least sympathize with the fact that it was awful.
One of the funny things about it was I actually enjoy most of the show until the point of that final battle. That final battle was so dumb that it didn't do the series justice.
Yeah, it's a huge letdown.
And I mean, like, everything that led up to it too, like, because there's this weird tactic where the enemy employed a big magic spell that they borrowed from the sinister dark force, and they were like turning fallen soldiers into berserker zombie corpses, and it was like a big deal. And then the one who launched the spell like went kind of demon lordy, but it was just so dumb. Like, their dialogue, the fight, that's probably the downfall of the show.
I mean, yeah, he became this great demon lord kind of thing, resurrected and oozing with this exuding X amount of power, just to turn it into this a big old punching bag, just for the sake of laying his corpse, laying his life down for this.
There's like ways to do that well. Like, arguably, Seven Deadly Sins did that well in, like, the end of season 1. If you were to compare how they fought, the human term demon lord kind of entity to this show, you would see the vast disparity that I'm talking about of bad.
All right. Looks like Isekai cheated its way into first place as the worst Isekai this season. Because I think I'd rather watch Mouse on my retry, which I think is the only other title that's really bad. The Mother with the 2 attack is not bad. I don't know, it's just, you can't get into it. But, we've gone on for about an hour and 37 minutes, so let's go ahead and just leave the last few minutes to our 2-hour mark to cover some movies. And we can save some titles for next week if people have time.
Sure.
So, over the course of the time, we've had a few movies come out, which was the Bunny Girl Senpai movie.
Yep.
We have Promenade. Or Promenade. Sorry.
Promare. Promare, yeah.
So, we have that. We also had one other movie.
There's
It's like Fate Stay Night 2.
No, that one was like in theaters a while ago.
I mean,
They announced
it
3,
depends
but...
if you're talking about like theaters or like it's on Yacht.
Yeah, I'm talking theaters.
And then I think
Danmachi was one other one.
Yeah, Danmachi.
I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Danmachi was in July.
Because
Euphonium
arguably, if you're going to also go over that, then I think didn't the Tanya one, Tanya the Evil, just come out not too long ago on
it did
Blu-ray, but not its theatrical run predated this.
So real quick though, I think before we get started on these other titles, I think Sean had some questions about Penguin Highway.
Yeah, that just hit home video and I saw it. Don't really know what to think about it. Because I feel like there's more underneath the surface, but I wasn't paying that much attention to the movie, so I kind of got out of it. Coming of age, fun science stuff. This woman and her boobies. And then Parallel World or something. I don't know. It's like it seemed kind of like a shallow movie by description. I feel like there was something going on underneath this. What it is, for example, like one of the scenes that kind of confused me was like there was a typhoon, and then like the boy's sister just like busts into the room and like she starts crying because she had this vision of her mom dying or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And then that was the whole scene, and it didn't like lead into anything. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that movie, but it was a perfectly competent production.
I don't remember that scene.
I vaguely remember that scene, but yeah, I don't think I remember much of it since it really didn't lead to anything after that. It kind of just transitioned right back to the problem at hand, which is the penguins.
Yeah. So the only thing I remember is at the beginning it was kind of split into two things. One was the mystery of the penguins and the One-san and her boobs, and then the next part was with the sphere in that forest of water or something, whatever that was.
Yeah.
So there was those two parts going at the beginning, and then near the end it kind of combined with each other to give the conclusion. But trying to think of, it's been actually a while. I think that came out in March, right?
I think came out in April in the theater here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it
Yeah, I
had to
think-
be April because I was in Oregon when I saw that. Yeah, so that was in April. Like,
Yeah, I think I remember rambling about this movie in one of the OreAni episodes.
yeah. But I liked it. It was very enjoyable. I got a free T-shirt from Nick. He got So that was kind of cool. So I got my own Penguin Highway T-shirt,
Nice.
and then um, but I don't know much else to say about it. I mean, the other movies that have come out were more impactful, had more action and things go inside of it. This one was kind of low, and I think I might have to watch it again to fully understand it, because just one watching I don't think was enough, and that's probably why it went into the back of my mind, because there was quite a bit of stuff happening. I remember they were riding on this wave of penguins at one point, and I'm like, wait a minute, what was going on?
Yeah, and something about like the bubbles are like portals to another dimension or something. I'm not sure if I
Yeah,
if I got that right.
So, it's definitely going to have to be something I'm going to have to rewatch and try to analyze and see what really was happening. I just remember more or less the comedic points, and but as far as how they wrapped it all up, I can't remember too much. I know she was part of something else, so yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch it again.
Did anyone see that Studio Trigger thing?
Yeah, I'm sure we all have, except Sean.
Yeah.
What?
Unless Sean did. Did you
Promare.
watch Promare?
Promare.
Oh, Promenade.
Listen here, you.
Yeah.
I actually had to look this up because you're all calling it Promare. It's actually called Promare.
Yeah.
Promare in
Promare.
katakana.
Protomar.
Yeah.
Who knows? I was trying to get it from memory because I couldn't remember the title.
Yeah, I didn't look it down writing on either. I thought I was just trying to remember what they were saying in the show, but I could be a little off.
Yeah. When this
I guess my question is it damn it.
Damn it, maybe.
Is it profound, or is it just here's another Studio Trigger thing? It's in the vein of Kill the Kill or something.
Okay, so I don't know if it actually is profound or not, but I'll tell you my honest take on it.
Is it like profoundly different or profoundly better than anything they've ever done?
So if you recall, I largely consider Darling in the Franxx in the vein of the Trigger shows, counting, Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill. Darling in the Franxx made it in that list, even though that was a split studio production. To me,
I think it counts.
No, yeah, it does count, but that actually kind of, in watching this movie, I realized its staunch differences from the other two. So I'm not going to go as far as to say I think that studio took that concept of magma energy and wanted to make more of a thematic movie and embodiment of them, like pulling characters out of Kill la Kill and obviously Gurren Lagann, to represent the whole show, or at least character designs. But
let me preface this by saying that Promare is a Hiroyuki Imaishi anime.
Mm-hmm.
Is it profoundly better or different than his other productions, which are Kill la Kill, Gurren Lagann, Panty and Stocking, Dead Leaves, and Luluko?
It's definitely close to Kill la Kill and Gurren Lagann, and then the other kind of three. As far as the profoundness, I couldn't really tell you because I actually fall off with the other three. I did watch Luluko, but I don't think I watched Dead Leaves nor the other thing. So then I might not be able to answer too holistically, but this is still kind of my piece on the movie, just to continue with it since I've given it. In the two prior shows, you've had a clear theme. In Gurren Lagann, it was kind of like that spiral energy, and the anti-spirals was kind of like the thematic fighting element. In Kill la Kill, it was kind of thread and clothing and attire stuff. In Darling in the Franxx, it gets kind of weird because it was over magma energy, but that wasn't the embodiment of like the fighting style or anything. That was just a story plot gimmick.
Yeah, I think Imaishi's thing is kind of like shonen anime. Like he wants to do tributes to the shonen genre.
Yeah.
So it's very much like power battling, shonen power battling. I'm using the power for.
I keep getting audio drops from you, but I'm not sure.
Oh.
It's. I mean, yeah. I'm sorry. It's probably more on my end. Hopefully not on Tank's end, because that's where it more matters from.
I'm getting audio drops as well. He'll be
Okay.
editing it, just stuff like that.
But so in Promare, they actually did, or Promare, or however we're gonna say it. They kind of came out and said in an interview that this show kind of, I'm not saying they said this in the interview, but it kind of directly competes with that Fire Force, that Enen no Shobutai. It has a similar element where most of the main cast is part of a Fire Force. There are pyrokinetics that have wakened in society. And one of the thematic elements here is, as you always know, I'm going to spoil this, and because they actually did kind of spoil it a little bit in the beginning. In this world, Earth momentarily merged or is connected to by a parallel world, which is not a world, it's literally a star. And the star kind of gained sentiency. Like in the way that it did fusion and manipulated its electromagnetic waves, it literally made a life form. And that life form has tied itself to some people. Some people can manifest and resonate with that life form, hence why they awoke into pyrokinesis. Apparently, part of that problem is, though, they are literally, as though almost it was an addictive drug to some people, not all people, but to some, they couldn't really control their urge to burn things. So aside from the weird pyrokinetic fire that they have, because it's more of an alien life form fire, in the show it would also solidify fire. Like the fire can literally form armor and constructive pieces, and it's literally hardened fire. And in that sense, some characters can fight fire with fire, although typically the pyrokinesis members don't necessarily fight. So that's like one of the clashes that didn't kind of make sense to me, but like with that theme to fire and the theme to, alien life, it makes it kind of a direct replacement for me to Darling in the Franxx, also because their attention to music. Gurren Lagann had great musical score. Kill la Kill had a musical score. Promare had a really great musical score. Darling in the Franxx, maybe it did. Like, nothing's memorable to me. Like, there are songs from Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill that stand out to me. Darling in the Franxx, not so much. Promare, yeah, some of the tunes were kind of catchy. They really blend the music in with the action, and it's nice when it's all a cohesive piece. That all said, while I enjoyed the movie, it didn't necessarily cement itself as a favorite in my book. I definitely appreciated watching it, but I think I still kind of prefer. Like, I don't know how it ranks, not counting Darling in the Franxx, amongst the other two, is kind of what I'm trying to say. Even though, like, any of those works are in my collection.
So, for me, being at, it was just a fun show to watch. I liked how they gave a lot of call-outs to all the other shows that they've been through. When they said you got to spin like a spiral, and making a call back to that show.
Yeah,
and
drill at one point.
Yeah, and then they made a lot of call-outs to a lot of their other series and stuff, which was fun. Single time they did that, the crowd would cheer, yeah, we know what they're talking about. But it was a fun show to watch, and I would have to admit, at first, because I didn't watch anything, I thought that blue-haired guy was supposed to be a girl. So I was actually surprised it was a guy from watching it.
I was surprised too. They put out a prologue that you can actually watch on like torrents or whatever. So I saw that. I haven't seen the movie itself, but yeah, it had the blue dude in it.
So that somewhat surprised me, but overall it was just really fun. And like he said, to the music, it was done by Sawano Hiroyuki, which is the person that does Kill la Kill, Attack on Titan, and Guilty Crown. So he's got quite a few good soundtracks already out there. So it was fun seeing his name in the credits. And but I don't know if I would say if it was really profound. I mean, it was just a really enjoyable show. I think they were just having fun.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to know if it was like something different from Imaishi or if it's sort of more of the same. It seems like it's more of the same.
Yeah. Vincent, did you see it?
Yep.
What did you think of it?
I think it triggered dialogue to 12. I think I said that posted it once before. I
Yeah.
pretty much stick with it. I mean, there's just so much similarity of Premiere with Kill la Kill and Gurren Lagann. They got their whole signature style working, all the cross beams and all those angular things, elements thrown at it, and they use a lot of those flat monotone colors to their effect. I think if I was taking a more silly take, they did better job restraining themselves from going too risque. Because if you see Kill la Kill, I mean, whole wardrobe is a wardrobe malfunction waiting to happen. But whereas in Promare, you really don't see that happening to any of the characters. Yeah, there's like some part that might be questionable. They kind of use the weird round hole filter thrown in up there to make people think that that person may be a little less clothed, but maybe not. But other than that, I really didn't come across anything that would suggest me to say, okay, when is this one character with almost no clothes that would come appear? That never happened, so. But as far as whether it's profound, I don't think it's really profound in any ways. It follows a predictable trend. It's got the crisis, then there's a revelations, and there's another bigger crisis to mend, and in the end, everything kind of goes kumbaya, slay the true evil person, and the end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The only other thing I can that I would mention about this movie was that the visual effects with the CG and the style of the animation blended really well with each other. So like when they were doing the buildings and then you cut to the characters, it didn't really seem like it was there's this gap between it. It flowed smoothly, and I really enjoyed that.
I do know it was said to be like an interesting cel-shaded piece that they put out, but like another aspect that I didn't really consider if I didn't hear the interview was they say usually in animation you tend to stick with like a black line to do like character boundaries and building and stuff. In this series, what they kind of messed with was a darkened color that wasn't necessarily black, but they were saying that it achieved a similar coal as black, but I didn't really find myself noticing it while watching this show. So that's something that I'd have to go back and kind of rewatch to see if there was truly a lot less actually black boundaries, or kind of like what they were getting at with, aside from, cel shading and weird fire animation aside, not that the fire animation was bad, but just that, kind of triangulated and stuff. That's something that I wouldn't mind watching extra closely just on the coloration of some of the character design, on dramatic moments and not dramatic moments.
I wonder what Sanzigen is doing now. Sanzigen is a studio that's has a relationship with Trigger, and they do a lot of the CG bits in Trigger anime. I think the last show they've done was Bubuki Buranki, and I don't think they've done anything after that. Maybe I just haven't been paying attention.
I think they went and did because there have been a pretty upflux of some CG pieces. It couldn't have been that no, that was the Kimono people who went and did that weird other show that I forget the name of, with the leaves and stuff.
Leaves and stuff.
Yeah. I just can't remember the name, but they were traveling on the bus. A lot of the sisters had like the cat ear things. Society was kind of dead. Everything was represented by an energy wave.
Oh!
No, they didn't work on that.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, that was the Kimono Friends guy.
Yeah.
So,
ID Zero and Bang Dream. Apparently, what Sanjigen has done after Bubuki Buranki.
Oh, that reminds me.
Bang Dream Season 2, was it, specifically, or no?
It says Bang Dream and Bang Dream Girls Band Party Pico. It says they did the second and third seasons of Bang Dream is what they did.
Yeah, okay. F them.
Oh, okay.
So
the only reason I say that is because Bang Dream, not that I'm a huge fan, but it was 2D animated Season 1, and Season 2 transitioned into CG, pure CG. And it's like,
it's not their fault. They're a studio that does CG, and
I'm not blaming them. I'm like, that's why it went full CG.
It's the faults of the production committees and the contracts that they signed.
So yeah, that does remind me, actually.
But like I said, Bang Dream's not special to me. I'm not mad at them. It's more, that's why that happened. Like, it's more of an like a eureka kind of moment.
All right, so that reminds me. Did anyone watch Millennium Actress when it came out on theaters?
Not redone, no.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're talking about back in the day, yeah, but not this year.
Because they did that release this, I think it was last month or so.
The remaster? Yeah, I haven't seen the remaster.
Yeah, I watched that one.
That was...
Yeah.
I liked it, but they subtitled a lot of it wrong. Like, they're missing letters, or they used the wrong word. I was like, oh, man.
The typos in the subs, that's great.
Yeah, so...
I think they kind of rushed it through. Hopefully they fix it by the Blu-ray release, which is in December. But then again, the original subtitle was pretty horrendous too. I think it was done by Go Fish, which is not even in existence anymore.
Did they just become Go Hands or something? No, I'm kidding.
No, I think Go Fish was a subsidiary of the DreamWorks Pictures way back when.
Oh.
And they really didn't work on too many of other series. But I do remember buying that DVD with so much hopes, and when I saw it with that awful subtitle, and I mean, I didn't know much about Japanese back then. I mean, far less than what I do now, but even then I could tell that there were just so much problems. So when they did that, they're gonna be releasing under a different company with the reworked subtitles and dubbings and to boot. I had my hopes of, but I don't know. Hopefully they fix all the mistakes. I'm at this point. I'm just happy to be able to see it in the theater in full glory, more so than anything else.
And
so, want to get through Bunny Senpai real quick, or no? How are we looking on?
Yeah. So for Bunny Senpai, if anything, it could have just been an arc in a TV series. I mean, the quality wasn't any different from the TV series. So. That's
sad when the movie doesn't look better.
It was consistent, so that as you watch it, you like, oh yeah, this is definitely Bunny Senpai. But as far as the whole story and arc and everything, it was decent. When it came to that kind of content, I would say, to me personally, Suzumiya Haruhi, I like their take on this, weird. Their movie was a whole lot better.
Okay,
And-
so just to kind of make sense of, I think, what George is trying to, or Tank, sorry, I'm bad with names sometimes.
It doesn't matter.
So this was, of course, kind of finishing where the story left off. We had the unknown puberty syndrome on, the one girl, whatever her name is. It's not important right now. But this is that resolution arc. And kind of like what George was saying, while the art style was kept much the same, there were some moments where there was like an improved backdrop for, wintry scenes that I don't believe I would have seen in the TV anime, but again, it largely felt like I was watching a continuing season just on the big screen. I swear, I think my theater had like a little blur spot in the center somewhere. I don't know if there's a smidge on a lens, but there was exactly one spot on the screen that would blur out, and it was kind of terrible whenever subtitles or things with fine lines were supposed to be in that one spot. But, that's hopefully not a flaw in the animation itself. I don't think it would be. But the whole time I was watching this thing, it felt a little bit different from the first season, because the first season to me felt like, Bakemonogatari. Like, okay, the XYZ girl has a problem, we go to the science person, get a consultation, figure out what we can maybe do to help alleviate the problem, awesome. This movie felt a lot like a visual novel to me. Like, I would literally think that because of this film, this whole thing was a visual novel.
It came from a visual novel, didn't it?
I don't know. I thought you said it came from a book when we were in person.
I'll check as you talk.
But oh shit. But and like, it had a little bit of weirdness to it because it dealt with being able to send, like, from the future and the past kind of blending together. So there was almost this like weird timeline element to the story. But upon watching it, I was kind of making sense of it all along the way until the last scene. Like, I stuck with it. It made sense to me. I was okay with it. Oh, and I'm like, is this no longer an alternate timeline? Did we go all like Steins Gate? Are we just in a, like, basically, does this person still have a problem, or are we in some kind of a world where they didn't have a problem to begin with? I'm not sure, because the way the film ended. So, like, I think that's the note that I didn't really appreciate, is walking away a little bit more confused than having all questions answered.
All right, so I was mistaken. I was thinking of light novel, not visual novel. You said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a light novel. I don't know why I was thinking.
Yeah, that's what you said in person, and that's why I was like, oh my god, like, trying to read this movie as a light novel might be like really terrible.
So, yeah, I don't know. Was it worth the 5-hour drive I made to watch it? Maybe. I would have liked to watch it more than once with that long of a drive.
Hey, it did play 2 days in a row.
Yeah, the other seats weren't that great. But, it was still enjoyable. I like the characters. Mai and Sakata's, their interactions always making me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to see a lot of everyone else appearing there sporadically as the foreign characters, which gave you a lot of those throwbacks to, oh yeah, I remember when this happened. Thinking about the
like
series.
The sister only having 3 scenes or something like that.
Yeah, so it wasn't like they were put in there and it was fun, but yeah, like I said, they should have just put it in the second season rather than release a movie.
I don't know, like, a part of me feels conflicted. Did I appreciate appreciate it as a movie? Not so much. Do I feel it should have been like a 12-episode core? Not so much. Because that adds quite a bit of footage. So only if it like improved the ending at all or helped make the ending make a little bit more sense would I have appreciated that. But at the end of the day, the series does really shine on its dialogue. I will give it that. The way the characters interact are kind of what makes the show the show. So,
But I would say this one was a little easier to follow as far as time wise, because like if you remember a few of the other episodes, it would give you a date, and then it would give you another date, and it would give you another date. You're like, wait, is that in the future? Is that a flashback? Or as I was watching the series, and well, this one was a little easier to follow the dates. But other than that, yeah. I think the movie I enjoyed the most that was released this year so far is Don Machi movie.
really, over the Pancreas one?
Well, Pancreas was
I
good.
want to eat your pancreas.
That was a
It
good
must have been a really good Don Machi one.
The thing is that the Pancreas one was good. It got the feels out of me, I guess you would say. But Don Machi has that high rewatch value. I could see myself watching that over and over.
Hey, as long as it's closer to season 1 and not 2, I might enjoy it as well.
So it has nothing to do with any of the seasons. So
Well, I know, but I just meant the content structure. But I actually kind of doubt it. It'll probably be closer to season 2, because what I wanted to see was like progression on Belkun, like hammer at his stats, figure out more about his skills, develop them skills.
It's going to be before season 2. It's the story. The story definitely takes place before season 2.
Yeah, so I'm probably not gonna. Yeah, I'm probably good that I didn't go see it right away.
But go ahead.
I think the theatrical release was I really put that much to the least of my list, simply because I think it would have been okay if it was released in OVA form or made for TV. Because when that movie was blown up in the giant screen, I noticed that it didn't look as good as I hoped for. Whereas a Bunny Senpai movie, for better or worse, it was able to carry out the decent quality in a larger screen. It does have its problem with other things. I think I mentioned in a posting somewhere, but I drew the parallel of a Bunny Senpai movie with Your Name. It was going great, and the last moment of that ending, that really ruined it for me. Simply because I was hoping for the bittersweet ending, since he had to go through all the emotions, try to make it rectify, and come to the realization that he cannot fix everything. He has to learn to live with it. Then at the very end, I'm scratching back on my head. It's like, what the hell had just happened here? It's like, why did you go through all that agony just to have it all wiped out, clean? All for what? If she could have done that from the beginning, she should have done that instead of wringing his ass through all the time troubles and him dying, her dying, everybody dying, and everybody going into the zombie formations. Because throughout the movie, I was thinking, okay, so this is very different from the Hollywood movie where there's no fairy tale happy ending for everybody. This is good. This is what I'm expecting to see. Then the ending happened. I was like, man. I'm okay with this being a movie, because if they try to break it down to episodic content-wise without filler, that probably will fill about 4 episodes at most, so it definitely would not fill into the whole season's worth. Even with the flop in between to try to extend it, I don't see how this will stretch more than 6 or 7 episodes. So
what I meant when going into season 2 is make it an arc in season 2, not the whole season 2. Because the first
yeah, but that's assuming there's more story to tell.
There is, because there's 9 books. The first season covered 5.
Jesus Christ.
Or so.
Oh, jeez, okay.
And then this movie just covered 1 book.
What the hell else is there? God
so there's 3 other books left for that second
No, I know,
season.
but like they better be new characters or something.
So
I don't know,
that-
because like Bakemonogatari went through that, like everybody had a regressive, like, condition. Like I had this problem, I was cured. Now here's like some reiteration of the thing or remanifestation or
but, yeah.
something that ties into it again.
Well,
That's only Bakemonogatari as a basis, though.
is there any other movies or anything you guys want to talk about? And
Does Makoto Shinkai have a new movie? He does, right?
Coming out, I believe, not out right now.
Oh, okay.
all I know is the next movie is Konosuba. Next month. That's going to be
Oops,
out.
I opened up Funimation twice.
I think there is another. I think there's a One Punch movie this season. Or sorry, this month, not this season. This month, being released in theaters. But I think the biggest one is going to be for me, is Konosuba. Next month.
I know there's some Violet Evergarden movie on the way. I don't know how that's going to be shown though. Is that just going to appear on Netflix or something like that?
That's a good question.
So that might be the last Kyoto Animation thing that we're going to see for quite some time.
So, let's go ahead.
So, the Makoto Shinkai movie is called Weathering with You, and it's releasing literally even in Japan in 2020. So, I don't know, early 2020, so we'll probably see it mid to late. But Weathering with You.
I wonder if there were like pre-release reviews or something. So I swear, like, some people were having opinions on this thing as if they've seen it. I don't know. I don't pay that much attention to Shinkai. I was just asking out of curiosity.
Yeah, I know he had something on the horizon, but I knew it was a little bit away still.
When it comes to Shinkai, I just like how it looks. His stories tend to piss me off.
Yeah,
They never
I've
end
seen-
correctly.
I've seen enough Shinkai for one lifetime. I don't need to see more of it until he does something different. I know that Keiichi Hara has a movie it's been reviewed. I don't know, like, in what way you can see it. But it's on, I forget the name of it, like maybe something Wonderland. This is the guy who did Miss Hokusai. So his new movie is some sort of fantasy adventure and for families and stuff. It's like a family film. And reviews have said that it's kind of bland and has no impact. So that's kind of sad. But for the sake of completion, I'm just saying that, like, there's that movie too.
All right. Well, thank everyone for watching today. I'll post up and see if anyone wants to do something next week. If so, we'll have another video. If not, then join us for the fall season that's coming up. I think there's already a few episode 1s out there, so it should be somewhat interesting. And yeah, hopefully this on air went a whole lot better and we can keep up this quality and maybe get some better art for our next video. So other than that, thank you for watching and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
No.